On the federal scene, former public safety minister Marco Mendicino is calling for protective zones around political constituency offices. Our Ottawa correspondent Glen McGregor joining us now to discuss this very serious matter, especially when you take into consideration what happened last Saturday in the U.S. here. But Glen, I'm wondering if this initiative gets the go-ahead, is there a balance between concerns that politicians have versus residents being able to access these buildings here? How would this all work?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of increased reports of these kinds of things happening. That is, protesters or people who are disgruntled in some way targeting an MP's constituency office. And every MP, of course, has an office on Parliament Hill. And those offices are very well protected by the Parliamentary Protective Service, kind of a police force, especially made for the federal buildings in Ottawa. But MPs also have what they're called constituency offices. That is usually an office or sometimes more than one office, depending on the size of their ridings. In their ridings, they can handle issues involving constituents. Constituents can come in there and talk to their MP staff. Sometimes the MP themselves work out of their constituency offices. And we've seen a lot of these offices targeted by protesters. Just last night or this morning, we're finding out that the immigration minister, Mark Miller, his constituency office in his Montreal riding had been targeted by what appears to be pro-Palestinian protesters who spray painted and on the windows and shattered at least one window. So there's a constant problem that we're seeing more and more often. And MPs, of course, when you combine with the assassination attempt on Donald Trump over the weekend, MPs are not really feeling very safe. There's been a lot of cases where protesters are more aggressive about confronting members of Parliament. Marco Mendicino, who you mentioned, he was spit on a few weeks ago when he was leaving an office on Parliament Hill by somebody who I think was affiliated in some way with some of the Freedom Convoy protests. So a lot of them are not feeling safe. Mendicino's idea now is that you would create these legal buffer zones around constituency offices, and that if somebody who committed a crime at one of those offices, something like excuse me, vandalism, shattering a window, or intimidating staff, would be subject to further criminal prosecution, additional prosecutions, or possibly greater fines. Unclear if there's a way of doing that under the criminal code currently. The current Justice Minister, Arif Virani, has said that he feels the criminal code is satisfactory right now, and police have the tools they need to intervene in these cases. But Mendicino, who of course was the public safety minister at one point, including during the Freedom Convoy, saying that further protections are needed, and is actually suggesting the piece of legislation that the government has passed to combat foreign interference could be used sort of through the regulatory process to essentially some of the measures in that bill that would protect infrastructure. You could include members of Parliament's constituency offices in that category, and police could prosecute accordingly. Unclear though, Faiza, if this is going to really make any difference to people who already are risking a criminal charge by doing this in the first place. Would they be more concerned about the possibility of a greater charge? Uncertain, but obviously Marco Mendicino highlighting what is becoming a really serious concern for a lot of MPs and a lot of political parties who worry this kind of stuff is going to discourage other people from getting involved in the political process, particularly women of color, who have been emphatically targeted way more than other people, especially in some of the online spaces. So we'll see which way this goes, whether the government, of which Mendicino used to be in the cabinet, will actually get behind this idea, Faiza.
And I'm sure there's going to be much more reaction to this. Glen McGregor reporting for us in Ottawa. Thanks, Glen.
Thanks.